The story begins as the protagonist returns to his apartment, lost in thought. He reflects on a curious idea. When a girl teases someone yet secretly harbors feelings for them, and despite human nature to prefer kindness over cruelty, if one still treats such a girl gently, it likely means they're in love. As he approaches his door, he's suddenly irritated by blaring music echoing from inside. Annoyance building, he bursts in, only to find Kohinata Aroha seated casually, flashing an innocent, almost doll-like expression. She coolly remarks on his lack of manners, implying he should knock before entering. Frustrated, he snaps back, this is his room. Switching off the blaring speakers, he sternly informs her that the noise might spark complaints from the neighbors. He questions why she isn't using the headphones she clearly has with her. Blushing deeply, she moves closer, gazing up at him affectionately, half shocked, half amused, wondering if he's seriously asking that, overthinking the moment as a subtle attempt to win her over. As she excitedly begins explaining why she didn't use her headphones, he raises his hand, cutting her off before she can speak further. He has no interest in hearing excuses, but rather than take him seriously, she bursts into light-hearted laughter, teasing his stoic, emotionless demeanor, while he stands there, visibly annoyed, staring at her with growing exasperation. She abruptly shifts the topic, flopping onto the bed in a theatrical manner. With exaggerated drama, she asks what he would have done if she had been changing clothes when he barged in, her expression suddenly turning comically stern as she pretends to call the police. Already on edge, he snaps back, telling her to go ahead and call whomever she wants. Unfazed, she mockingly refers to him as an intruder, then smirks and winks, insisting he stop calling her that. His irritation only deepens at the sight of her comfortably lounging in his room. It's technically possible, after all, she now has a spare key, a key he entrusted to his reliable neighbor and friend for emergencies. And yet, here it hangs openly around her neck. Now visibly irritated, he demands to know why she even has the spare key, firmly adding that having it doesn't give her the right to enter his room at will. She, however, shows no concern for his growing frustration and simply flops down onto his bed. With a soft blush on her cheeks, she smiles to herself, says that he just wants to kick her out so he can sink into the bed still soaked in her scent. He glares at her, exasperated, eyes narrowing with quiet warning. Without holding back, he tells her to leave if she wants to avoid being sprayed down with air freshener, and curtly suggests she return to her own room, clearly done with her antics for the night. She abruptly sits up, face flushed with anger, and demands to know if he acts the same way with his sister. When he sharply retorts that she's not his sister, she scoffs in irritation, pointing out that since she's his friend's younger sister, it naturally makes her his sister too. Still visibly annoyed, he firmly denies the logic and tells her to return the spare key. Instead, she defiantly places the key back around her neck, her cheeks tinged red with mischief, and teases him, challenging him to take it from her himself if he has the nerve. He's momentarily stunned by her audacity, left speechless and flustered. But just then, both freeze in surprise as his phone suddenly rings, cutting through the tension like a jolt. The next day in class, Ugoshi Akiteru sits quietly, a somber look on his face. He reflects on how he's just an average student, nothing extraordinary. Still, he's determined to make the most of his time, having neatly organized his notebook to ensure not even a single minute goes to waste. Watching his classmates idly chatting and laughing, he feels a pang of confusion. Why would anyone squander their time so carelessly? He reminds himself that everyone must confront their own intentions eventually. Just then, the classmate next to him drops an eraser. Without hesitation, he picks it up and hands it back. The boy, slightly dramatic, reacts with exaggerated surprise, teasing him for being so unnoticeable that he hadn't realized he was sitting right behind him the whole time. Though he forces a small smile, the words sting. A quiet wave of self-contempt washes over him as he's reminded, once again, of how invisible he feels. Although initially saddened by being so easily overlooked by his classmates, he quickly regains composure. A faint smile tugs at his lips as he reminds himself that this invisibility grants him the freedom to use his time meaningfully, without distraction. A notification pings on his phone. He glances at the screen. It's from the group chat. While he may not have a large circle of friends, the few he has are genuine and hold deep value in his life. That thought alone is enough to ease the sting of isolation. His quiet reflection is interrupted as Ozuma, his close friend, approaches with a loud yawn. When asked if he's still tired, Ozuma casually explains that he stayed up the entire night. Kohinata Ozuma, his only truly trusted friend, is everything he isn't: effortlessly handsome, radiating positivity and naturally magnetic. Even girls are drawn to him, always finding an excuse to talk. Despite that, Ozuma remains grounded, which is why he's one of the few people the protagonist sincerely trusts. As Ozuma approaches, Uboshi hands him the notebook. Ozuma accepts it gratefully, casually chatting and offering to treat him to dessert as thanks. He humbly apologizes for always relying on Uboshi's help and promises to return the favor someday. The sincerity in his voice deeply impresses Uboshi, who quietly admires Ozuma's warmth and kindness. Though flustered, he gently tries to wave off the offer, only for Ozuma to reassure him again with a heartfelt compliment, expressing genuine admiration for his character. Curious, Ozuma then asks if his sister visited again. Uboshi nods when he sadly explains that although he had confiscated the spare key, she somehow found another way in. Her persistence, combined with his soft-spoken nature, leaves Uboshi momentarily puzzled, wondering if they truly aren't siblings after all. With a teasing smile, he suggests that his sister might actually like Uboshi. Visibly annoyed, he quickly denies it, insisting she just enjoys annoying him. Still, Ozuma points out that her behavior might be a strange form of affection. He groans in frustration, admitting that if this is her way of showing feelings, it only makes him resent her more. Ozuma, undeterred, chuckles and remarks that love rarely follows logic. But Uboshi brushes it off, claiming that as someone completely ordinary, no one would ever fall for him. Ozuma reminds him that he's actually well liked by many students, but Uboshi deflects with a small smile, teasing that he is clearly the one who's popular. For a moment, he is speechless, once again thrown off by Uboshi's stubborn humility. Their conversation cuts short as the teacher enters, heels clicking sharply, exuding a refined yet commanding presence. With a firm, resonant voice, she scolds the unprepared students and orders those still idle to leave, despite the bell already having rung. She immediately begins the lecture. During class, Uboshi fixates on her strict demeanor and cutting remarks, mentally labeling her as domineering. The session feels long and draining, and when it finally ends, he's quietly relieved. He turns to Ozuma, ready to invite him to walk home together, only to fall silent upon seeing him already surrounded by a group of shy, blushing girls, all eagerly asking him to join them. But Uboshi is caught off guard when Ozuma suddenly turns to him with a panicked expression, quietly informing him that a certain cute girl is waiting outside. As Uboshi steps out of the classroom, his mood sours the moment he spots Ozuma's sister again, standing there with a faint blush, politely waving and clearly hoping to walk home with him. He's stunned by her sweet demeanor. At school, she's known as a top student, calm, composed, and impeccably polite, so seeing her act so endearingly toward him throws him off. He frets internally, convinced that her overly proper behavior will end up ruining his reputation, making others assume things about them. Turning away quickly, he curtly tells her to wait while he grabs his books and calls Ozuma to come along. But just as he tries to leave, she shyly grabs a fold of his shirt, cheeks flushed, and softly expresses her wish to walk home only with him, leaving him completely bewildered. Frustrated, he snaps at her to drop the fake tears and stop acting. But she, still wearing that overly composed and sweet expression, begins to cry, accusing him of being heartless. She dramatically hides her face behind her hands, continuing her performance, lamenting that after sharing such deep love the previous day, he's now ignoring her like a stranger. The surrounding students stop and stare, visibly stunned by the scene. Overwhelmed by panic and embarrassment, he hastily grabs her wrist and drags her out of the classroom. Once outside, he glares at her and demands an explanation for the emotional outburst. She responds cheerfully, saying she just wanted to walk home with him. Still irritated, he tells her to stop being so dramatic, but she innocently asks if it's because he said yesterday that having a girlfriend would be a problem for him. He freezes, completely baffled, trying to remember when he ever said such a thing. The next day, in his bedroom, Uboshi sits tensely, holding his phone to his ear, clearly troubled by the conversation. Beside him, Aroha quietly sits, listening in. On the other end of the call, President Tsukino Mori reassures Uboshi about his job inquiry, acknowledging that he's seeking work related to his field of study. However, she also sternly reminds him that making such requests while still a student is risky. Even though the request is from his cute nephew, she makes it clear that the interview process will be strictly upheld. Suddenly, Mori's tone shifts playfully as he asks if Akateru-kun has a girlfriend. Before he can even respond, Aroha, who's been eavesdropping the entire time, bursts into laughter, wraps her arms around him from behind, and hugs him tightly, catching him completely off guard. Startled, he panics and snaps at Aroha, telling her not to cling to him so suddenly. Meanwhile, on the phone, President Mori pointedly asks if there's someone special in his life. Flustered, Ubashi quickly deflects by saying he recently got a cat. The president chuckles, intrigued, and asks what breed it is, putting even more pressure on Ubashi, who struggles to answer. As the call continues, Aroha tightens her embrace, softly warning him of the risks if people find out a girl is secretly living with him. Already on edge, Ubashi glares and scolds her harshly, ordering her to let go, but she, completely unfazed by his frustration, blushes and teasingly remarks that the situation feels like an NTR play. His face turns pale as he demands to know how she even knows that term. With a bold smirk, she casually replies that she saw it in his search history, leaving him stunned and even more exasperated, now realizing she had used his phone without permission. When there's no response, the president calls his name again. Startled, Ubashi quickly apologizes, fabricating a clumsy excuse about his cat scratching the phone. The president calmly advises him to discipline the pet properly, remarking that it sounds rather wild. At that moment, Aroha throws her arms around him from behind, laughing mischievously at the word discipline. After the call ends, her cheeks glow crimson as she shyly confesses how adorable he looks when flustered. Still utterly exasperated, he shouts for her to stop clinging to him, insisting that this is serious. It concerns his future. Unfazed, she cheerfully calls his name and boldly declares that for the betterment of his future, she should become his girlfriend. With someone as dazzling and supportive as her by his side, she claims he has nothing to fear. Completely overwhelmed, he gives up, telling her to do whatever she wants. But moments later, anxiety overtakes him again, and he shouts for her to stop pretending to be his girlfriend. Stepping back, he pleads with her not to complicate things. His career is on the line. After all, the first thing directors always ask about is romantic relationships, and he refuses to let her antics jeopardize his future. At first she seems genuinely disheartened, but then suddenly runs up and hugs him from behind, claiming he doesn't understand her feelings. For the first time, Ubashi finds himself truly flustered as she gently explains that while she understands his worries about the future, being ignored makes her feel like he's drifting away. She just wants to be by his side, always. Her unexpected honesty leaves him speechless, stunned by how sincere and different she seems from her usual self. When he softly calls her name, concerned, she suddenly laughs and mocks him, shouting that she was just joking. She teases him, asking if he thought she was being serious. Then, with a playful grin, she explains she was just practicing, hoping to confess to someone like that someday. Then she asks about his remarks. She just giggles at his embarrassed expression and reddened ears. Blushing herself, she smiles sweetly and whispers that he really is quite adorable. Realizing the whole situation, he grows irritated and chases after her, shouting that he'll never believe a word she says again, throwing a few frustrated curses her way. But she only grins stubbornly, flashing a wide smile as she dashes off playfully. As he runs after her, his foot slips, and he crashes to the ground. Lying there, annoyed, he thinks bitterly about how girls like her shamelessly tease without caring if they humiliate someone, and still somehow get called cute. Glaring at her from the floor, he yells a warning. Next time, he will catch her. That night, as Ubashi gets ready to head out, Aroha pulls off his headphones and asks with concern where Senpai is going so late, adding whether his parents ever told him not to be out at night. Annoyed, he reminds her she's also not in her own house at this hour. Ignoring the jab, she says she's thirsty and asks for a drink. He casually tells her there's tomato concentrate in the fridge. Her face lights up in excitement as she runs toward the kitchen, happily claiming it proves he loves her. As he slips on his shoes, he tells her to make sure she locks the door tightly. She nods. After a short walk, Ubashi arrives at a cozy cafe where the president greets him with a smile, teasing him for showing up so early. Tsukino Mori Makoto, the president of Honey Plays, and Ubashi's uncle, mentions he originally expected someone else, but begins talking about the game the night the black goat screamed. He says he played it and praises the mysterious team behind it, the Fifth Floor Alliance, naming the programmers, illustrator Murasaki Shikinu-sensei, scenario writer Makigai Namako, and finally the producer and director, Ubashi himself. When the president expresses surprise that Ubashi managed to produce and release the game online in such a short time, Ubashi humbly reminds him it wasn't just his work. The whole team made it possible. but the president, still insisting it feels like Uboshi made it alone, calls it their little secret. Uboshi firmly counters, stressing that every team member gave their all. With growing excitement, the president praises the game's high-quality character designs, smooth gameplay, and lack of bugs, noting how it quickly reached millions of views. As he continues scrolling through it on his phone, Uboshi modestly adds that the team still has bigger dreams to chase. The president, clearly impressed, admits that even during his own student days, he could never have created something this polished with such limited time and resources. Finally, Uboshi asks about his decision. Smirking, the president confirms he wants Uboshi under their company's guidance. Then, laughing, he says the world of youth is full of surprises, and if Uboshi wants help, he'll also be expecting something in return. Their conversation is interrupted as the waiter arrives. With a playful grin, the president apologizes to her for the wait and politely asks for their order. As both place their requests, the waiter professionally notes them down, until the president, eyeing her hands, casually compliments her delicate fingers. Then teasingly, he asks if she'll wait for him outside so he can come meet her, making the poor girl blush in confusion before fleeing the scene in embarrassment. Watching this, Uboshi grows irritated and scolds his uncle. But quickly realizing his frustration might show, he hurriedly excuses himself and heads toward the restroom. Now standing in front of the mirror, Uboshi angrily scolds himself for freezing up earlier. Taking a deep breath, he decides to forget it and move on. As he opens the restroom door, ignoring the sign that it's a gender-neutral toilet with a broken lock and a warning to knock, he's stunned to find a girl already inside. Both freeze in shock, speechless for a moment, until she suddenly realizes the situation, yells in embarrassment, and kicks him out. Now sprawled on the floor, Uboshi lies there, completely crushed by what just happened. Back at the cafe, after hearing the whole story, the president laughs at the bizarre restroom encounter. Seeing the girl still upset, he offers her a tomato juice. While she silently sips, still fuming, Uboshi asks about her identity. Both are stunned when the president curiously asks if he truly didn't recognize her. After all, they used to play together in childhood. Looking closer at the girl drinking tomato juice, Uboshi suddenly realizes she is Tsukino Mori Mashiro, his uncle's daughter. She used to visit often, and they spent time reading, playing, and laughing together. Until 10 years ago. Uboshi is stunned by Mashiro's transformation into such an elegant and beautiful girl. Still shocked by her sudden appearance here, he listens as the president explains the condition. Honeyplay will take the 5th Floor Alliance under its wing, only if Uboshi agrees to act as Mashiro's fake boyfriend until they graduate. Both are speechless. Mashiro, furious, yells at her father, calling the idea ridiculous. But stepping closer, the president sternly tells her to stop treating her father so disrespectfully. He says he only fulfilled her request to transfer from her elite girls' school to a public one, and now he's trying to protect her from any shady boys by assigning Uboshi as her bodyguard. His uncle then turns to him and calmly explains everything. Still overwhelmed, Uboshi asks if she's really transferring to his school. The president smiles and confirms, all the procedures are done. She'll be his classmate starting tomorrow. Still in shock, he politely asks why she is transferring from such a prestigious school. The president exhales, ready to explain, but Mashiro, clearly embarrassed, gently begs her father not to reveal anything. Looking conflicted, her father sighs and insists on telling Uboshi, saying they'll be relying on him from now on. Just as he's about to explain, Uboshi calmly interrupts and asks if it's due to absences. When the president nods, Uboshi glances at Mashiro's flustered expression and quickly suggests there's no need to explain further. Surprised, the president pauses as Uboshi adds that it's enough for him to know she's transferring for her own reasons. He explains that he never involves himself in anything beyond what's necessary, and meddling in others' personal matters isn't his habit. The president smiles at Uboshi's composed attitude, and both parties agree to the unusual arrangement. Still flustered and frustrated, Mashiro loudly declares she's only accepting this because it's a fake relationship. Seeing her fiery expression, the president realizes both of them are already feeling used by the situation. With a soft smile, Uboshi wishes her the best, only to be met by her angry shout, scolding him not to act like a friend when he's just a toilet pervert. Watching them bicker, the president laughs, pleased that things are unfolding smoothly. But she furiously snaps that her father will regret this. With a serious sigh, the president warns him to remember this is only a pretend relationship, and not to even dare touch or hurt his daughter. Already annoyed, Uboshi assures him not to worry. She hates him enough already. As they stand up, the president offers a handshake, and with that, the deal is set. Uboshi is now officially acting as her fake boyfriend. The next day at school, Mashiro stands before the class to introduce herself. With a faint blush on her face, she suddenly adds that she's Uboshi-kun's girlfriend, leaving the entire class in shock. Everyone stares at them, whispering and casting suspicious glances. When one excited classmate asks how they first met, Mashiro, visibly annoyed, quickly sits down and says she doesn't remember. As she takes the seat next to him, he's surprised. It's the same desk previously used by another student, and he recalls how much his uncle pushed for this exact arrangement. Trying to speak to her, he leans over, but Mashiro glares at him with clear irritation. "Don't talk to her like that, toilet pervert demon," she snaps coldly. He's left speechless, thinking to himself how convincingly she's acting like a real girlfriend. While he tries to reassure Mashiro, saying not to worry about the class gossip since they'll soon forget, she snaps at him again, telling him not to talk to her so casually. He grows puzzled seeing her calmly sipping tomato juice. It reminds him of how Aroha was also overjoyed about the same tomato concentrate the day before. He wonders if it's just that popular. His thoughts are interrupted when Ozu approaches from behind, shocked to see Aki with a girlfriend. Whispering, Ozu asks if he had been hiding the relationship all along. Annoyed, Uboshi mutters that it's not what it seems. Since Ozu is his best friend and also a member of the Fifth Floor Alliance and aware of Uboshi's deal with President Mori, Uboshi feels compelled to explain. Still confused himself, he whispers that the relationship is fake. Ozu, stunned, asks if he's now living a rom-com protagonist's life. Irritated, Uboshi reminds him that he's also constantly being chased by the beautiful student council president, which Ozu brushes off, saying she just wants her laptop fix. Still, Uboshi can't help but wonder why she calls on Ozu of all people. He sighs, thinking how in this world, some people are simply born to be the hero, and Ozu is clearly one of them. Every week, girls confess to him directly, but he shows no interest in any of them, being too obsessed with his own hobbies. Even after 3 years of friendship, Uboshi has never found a single flaw in Ozu. To him, Ozu is the ideal rom-com protagonist. Meanwhile, Uboshi himself feels defeated. First Aroha is upset with him, and now Mashiro treats him coldly. Disheartened, he wonders why all the girls around him are so annoying. Aki texts in the Fifth Floor Alliance group chat, where everyone is anxiously discussing the project. With the deadline looming tomorrow, they keep messaging Murasaki Shikibu about her overdue illustration report, but she hasn't responded once. One member mentions that her phone seems to be switched off, causing the group to grow even more restless. Watching the silence in the chat, Uboshi grins darkly. With a mischievous glint in his eyes and a wicked smile, he mutters to himself, if he has to kill her to get that illustration, so be it. The next day at school, Aroha approaches Uboshi with a flushed face and shyly hands him back the dictionary. Seeing his puzzled expression, as she often scribbles in her notebook, she flashes a sweet smile and teases that it was a cute gesture. Uboshi, clearly annoyed, quickly denies it. As they chat, Mashiro walks past them, her face tense with irritation. Back in class, all eyes are on him and Mashiro, surprised to see the so-called couple together. Mashiro angrily sits beside Uboshi, but ignores him completely, even shutting her eyes. She suddenly pulls her hand back despite no contact. Confused and frustrated, Uboshi resigns himself to spending 5 uncomfortable hours next to her. As the lecture ends, a classmate teases Uboshi about having another girlfriend despite already having Aroha, calling her the cutest girl around. Uboshi awkwardly explains Aroha is just Ozu's sister who seeks his help, but the classmate insists she's overly devoted. Suddenly, Mashiro stands up angrily, slams a novel on Uboshi's desk, and turns away coldly, refusing to respond. He stares at the novel, quietly wondering if she wants him to read it. The thought lingers in his mind as the class ends and the lunch break begins. During lunch, Mashiro, in a commanding tone, orders him to get her a seafood rice ball, claiming it's his responsibility as her boyfriend. Confused by her sudden demand, he hesitates, but faced with her firm stare, he has no option. With a tired sigh, he gets up and heads off to buy her food. Spending the whole day with Mashiro wears him out, as she keeps giving him one task after another. Her constant orders exhaust him, and he starts to wonder if he might have done something wrong, especially since her behavior had been softening before. Suddenly, a thought strikes him. Maybe Mashiro is jealous of how close he was to Aroha, but he quickly dismisses it after seeing her distant, cold expression. He recalls how she once always wanted to be near him, yet now she seems strangely detached. Thinking about Aroha only adds to his fatigue as both girls feel equally frustrating, though in completely different ways. Now he begins to worry seriously. Will he really be able to manage everyone safely under the president's company? The entire classroom falls completely silent as the strict, no-nonsense female teacher enters. With a cold expression, she seems pleased by the sudden discipline and immediately begins the lecture. She states that students are free to ask questions if they don't understand the explanation. Watching her, Uboshi thinks to himself that this woman, Kajishi Sumair, their homeroom and math teacher, is infamous for her rigid attitude. Known by many as the Poison Queen, she's notorious for harshly scolding any student who fails to follow instructions properly. Her teaching style differs from others. She skips step-by-step textbook walkthroughs, instead presenting questions briefly and expecting students to understand the logic themselves. She clarifies only what's truly unclear, making her method intense but effective. During class, a bespectacled student challenges her approach, asking for basic explanations like other teachers. The room tenses as Sumair calmly tells him to self-study if he prefers. Frustrated, the student calls her method confusing. Unfazed, Sumair turns away and firmly says she won't change her method as it's proven effective. The student fires back, calling her irresponsible. Calm but sharp, she walks over and points out the irony. He blames her, yet hasn't even read his own textbook. She explains her goal is to prepare students for the future by teaching accountability. If he disagrees, he's free to leave. Leaning in, she lists the core values she expects: keeping promises, taking responsibility, and reporting mistakes. Those who can't are, in her eyes, useless. Then she steps back and tells him to sit if he understands. He complies, and she smoothly resumes the lesson. As the lecture ends, Sumair assigns reading up to page 135 for the next class. Just before stepping out, she unexpectedly turns around and calls out Uboshi by name, instructing him to report to the student guidance room during lunch. When he asks why, she only hints that it has to do with the current situation. After a brief nod from him, she reminds him not to be late and exits. The moment she leaves, Ozu rushes over in a panic, whispering about the infamous story of the delinquent Mohawk, who once entered that very room and emerged an hour later completely subdued, like a docile lamb. Ozu continues nervously, explaining that the student guidance room was personally designed by Sumair. It is soundproof, has no internet access, and contains strange tools collected from around the world. The atmosphere inside is unnerving, and few students enter it without a sense of dread. Still visibly nervous, Ozu asks if Uboshi has done something serious to deserve this. Yet despite the worry around him, Uboshi remains strangely calm. With a wry smile, he assures his friend not to panic. He's not planning to die that easily. During lunch break, Ozu walks beside Uboshi, visibly worried. But Aki, still calm, reassures him not to stress. Waiting casually, he approaches the door of the student guidance room and knocks before stepping inside. The room immediately gives off a strange atmosphere, lined with odd, unfamiliar tools from all over the world, just as Ozu described. At the center stands Sumair, waiting with a stern face. As she turns to face him, her cold voice cuts through the silence, asking whether he's so eager to die that he came running in so quickly. But Uboshi walks past her with a sharp glare, his voice firm as he tells her to get to the point. He has no time to waste. Suddenly, Sumair drops to her knees, bowing low to the ground. Her voice trembles with apologies, admitting she has no excuse. Uboshi, now seated confidently on the teacher's desk with a commanding presence, addresses her mockingly, calling her Murasaki Shikibu-sensei, and asking whether she's even aware of her own crimes. Her tear-filled eyes glance up at him, panic rising as she sees his deadly serious expression. His grin sends a chill down her spine. He's clearly here with one purpose: to punish. She tries to explain, claiming exam preparations for the next term left her with no time. But Uboshi merely smirks, and with a single swipe on his phone, shows her the group chat messages. His voice drips with sarcasm as he asks whether someone so busy still has time to watch my honey live in real time. Flustered, Sumair mutters that hobbies and responsibilities have different priorities. Uboshi knows the truth. Kagishi Sumair, feared in class as the Poison Queen, is also Murasaki Shikibu-sensei, a talented illustrator notorious for missing deadlines. Behind her strict persona, She secretly works on her art during school hours. The tool-filled guidance room wasn't built for discipline, but designed by Uboshi as a private, distraction-free workspace for her. Now sitting on the teacher's desk, he fixes his gaze on her and coldly reminds her of the very values she teaches: discipline, keeping promises, and reporting failure. Leaning in, he throws her own words back at her, that anyone who can't uphold those standards is worthless. Sumair, eyes brimming with tears, lowers her head in shame and offers a soft apology. She explains that this is simply the persona she must maintain as a teacher. If she falters even a little, she fears the students will laugh at her. Pride is all she has left to hold on to. Uboshi, surprised by this insecurity, asks sharply why she believes such a thing. In his class, no one mocks their teachers. But then a bitter realization crosses his mind. Perhaps the principal has been the one feeding her these fears. With a sigh, Uboshi shifts the topic to the illustration. Sumair hesitantly shows him her tablet, still blank. His composure cracks, a vein pulsing in his temple as fury flashes in his eyes. Without a word, he walks over and opens the cow tool, a menacing bull-shaped device, and orders her to get inside. Shaking, eyes brimming with tears, Sumair pleads with him. But Uboshi, seething, grabs her by the hair and demands how she could show up without even a rough sketch. She stammers that life in the slums drains her energy, but he cuts her off coldly, commanding her to start drawing immediately and report any delays. As she reluctantly sits down, her thoughts spiral, not from fear of punishment, but from the dread of her students discovering her hidden poverty and shattering her cool teacher image. Still fuming, Uboshi presses her shoulder. Sumair cries out, begging him to stop, but he shoves her down. Her body collapses. Looking down at her, Uboshi warns her to imagine the humiliation if the students ever knew the truth, that their strict, fearless teacher is fragile and afraid. His mind flashes back to their first meeting at last summer's exhibition. Among 79 booths, her illustration stood out, refined and alive. Curious, he asked the guide, and was shocked to learn it was the work of a publisher. When he approached her, she had downplayed her skill, saying illustration wasn't her real job. Now remembering that moment, his anger returns. He tells her it was her mistake, showing weakness to someone like him, and now he intends to extract every last masterpiece she has. Still on the floor, Sumair protests that threatening a teacher is wrong. But he leans in and tells her pride means nothing if she fails again. Eventually, Uboshi calms. Sitting down, he warns her to finish the project if she wants her secret kept. Seeing her tear-streaked face, he tells her to take the day off, get proper food, and focus on drawing. She quietly thanks him. Just as he turns to leave, she stops him. Nervously, almost whispering, she says she's received direct instructions about how to deal with Mashiro-chan at school. The next day, as the school bell rings, Uboshi approaches Mashiro and gently asks if she has any questions regarding the lecture. But she gives no response, her expression cold and distant. Leaning closer, he repeats the question, only for her to suddenly snap at him, her voice sharp, her eyes angry, telling him to stop pretending to be her boyfriend. The words sting. Uboshi falls silent, unable to argue, because pretending to be her boyfriend is exactly what he has to do. His thoughts drift back to the moment when his senpai, Kagishi Sumair, had called him into the student guidance room and revealed something important. She told him that while many things in Mashiro's life had shaped her current behavior, there was something even more serious at the root. Yet before Sumair could even explain further, she had been surprised to learn that Uboshi already knew Mashiro had been confined, locked up, before she transferred to this school. When Sumair hesitantly asked if he knew why, Uboshi had quietly replied that he couldn't ask something so painful so casually. Sumair then revealed that the girl had kept a secret, one so sensitive that when it was exposed, her classmates turned on her and bullied her relentlessly. What shocked Sumair the most, however, was that even though she was Mashiro's homeroom teacher back then, she still didn't know what that secret actually was. Now connecting the dots, Uboshi reflects on how deeply her past must have affected her. He finally understands why his uncle wanted him to act as Mashiro's boyfriend. If someone was by her side, pretending to be close, shielding her, perhaps she wouldn't be hurt so easily again. Sumair had also questioned him about the nature of their relationship, which he immediately denied. Still, she had already figured it out, that it was a fake romance created only for the glory of the Fifth Floor Alliance. Bowing deeply, she apologized sincerely for the trouble she might have caused him, knowing he was trying his best to support them all. When Ubashi explains that faking the relationship is the fastest way to accomplish their mission, he justifies it as a necessary move, one that saves time and avoids wasting power. As an adult with limited influence at school, he believes there's no better method. Then, without hesitation, he declares that he's removing Sumire from her teaching position to avoid wasting time. She doesn't protest, but instead bows humbly and gently asks him to treat Mashiro kindly, so she can at least enjoy her student life. With a small smile, he nods in agreement. Later, sitting in class, he watches Mashiro silently. Despite wanting to help her, he feels completely powerless seeing her distant expression. Meanwhile, whispers fill the room. Students gossiping whether Mashiro secretly loves him but hides her affection in public, or whether the two are even planning to get married. Only he knows the truth. There's nothing real between them. But then something unexpected happens. With teary eyes and a pure, childlike expression, Mashiro suddenly begs her classmates to stop staring at her. Watching her like this, he is struck by how kind-hearted she truly is. After class, he meets Ozu and brings up the situation. His friend calmly assures him that she has no feelings for him. He even jokes that if Ozu confessed, she might fall for him instead. But he quickly adds that she having no feelings for Ubashi could become a problem later on. Changing the topic, he packs his bag and asks Ozu to head home with him. But he declines, explaining that the student council president needs his help. When Oboshi teases whether the beautiful president might like him, Ozu quickly brushes it off, insisting she just needs assistance. Then, waving goodbye, he walks off on his own. Uboshi is at the school entrance, changing his shoes, when Aroha suddenly appears behind him and hugs him tightly. Startled and already worn out, he snaps in frustration, immediately recognizing her by her voice, irritating enough to hurt his ears. Aroha, unfazed, just laughs off his tone, brushing it aside as unnecessary. Despite his irritated protest, she clings to him, claiming she's there to cheer him up because he looked lonely sitting alone. With a teasing smile and blushing cheeks, she questions whether he truly dislikes being touched by her soft body. Ubashi, still annoyed, insists she's simply pressing herself against his back, but freezes when he notices something off. Unable to handle the situation and worried that she might catch on to anything about Mashiro, Uboshi feels trapped. His logic refuses to accept her bold claim, but his instincts tell him something's off. When she giggles again, reminding him not to move or shift his body, he realizes he's out of options. Carefully, he lifts her into his arms. Startled, Aroha begins panicking and shouting for him to put her down, but Ubashi keeps walking, deciding this is the safest way to keep her from exposing herself in public. She, unusually confused and thrown off by his sudden action, protests loudly. With a subtle grin, Uboshi holds her steady, asking if she'll now admit she was lying about the whole undergarment story, choosing to carry her like this rather than risk the embarrassment of proving her right. While Aroha, deeply embarrassed, warns Uboshi that people might misunderstand their relationship, he boldly dismisses it, leaving her flustered by his sudden confidence in carrying her like that. When he mentions taking the shortcut, she panics, blushing and crying as she pleads to be put down. Once he sets her down on the roadside, she apologizes for lying and troubling him, though she quickly warns that next time she won't lose to him. He seems ready, more confident in handling her now. Seeing his flustered reaction to her mentioning her shirt button, she teasingly asks if he really believes she wasn't wearing undergarments. He realizes how easily she can throw him off, but admires how she shifts the topic so smoothly. As they walk home, Ubashi, curious, asks for tips on getting close to someone as difficult as her. Aroha, slightly offended, wonders if he has another girlfriend but quickly recovers, smiling as she notes how caring he is to everyone. When he explains it's just his personality, she softly asks if he truly plans to leave that girl alone. Still discouraged, he confesses that no matter how hard he tries, Mashiro always responds with a cold expression. Aroha jabs at him, joking that no girl would like a toilet boy, while he half laughs, admitting even he feels sorry for himself sometimes. Realizing the whole situation, Aroha eagerly insists that he leave everything to her, claiming that as a girl, she knows best how to win over another girl. The next day, Mashiro is stunned when he humbly bows before her, offering to carry her bag and asking if she needs anything else, from her devoted lover or loyal servant. During lunch, he excitedly presents her with a meal, and after school, he even kneels down, offering his back for her to ride. Exhausted and irritated, she grabs him by the collar and drags him away from the crowd, angrily demanding to know if he's trying to harass her with this absurd behavior. Embarrassed and cornered, he recalls how this was all Aroha's idea. Show exaggerated kindness so the girl would think about him even at night. Now bowing again with guilt, he feels like a fool for going along with such a plan. Mashiro, emotionally shaken, quietly asks if he really hates her so much that he'd go this far knowing the result would be bad. He struggles to explain, ashamed that despite Aroha's advice, things ended in such an awkward mess. Before he can respond, Aroha suddenly appears, loudly praising them as a cute couple and blushing playfully demands they seal it with a kiss. Uboshi, now clearly annoyed, yells at Aroha, accusing her of deliberately deceiving him. She gleefully admits that as a strategist her only concern is achieving results. When he furiously scolds her for such bizarre ideas, she bursts into laughter, leaving Mashiro even more confused as she tries to process the scene. Aroha winks, cheeks slightly flushed, revealing it was all part of her plan. Realizing Aroha's scheme was merely to provoke her, Mashiro's eyes widen in shock. Uboshi, just as stunned, watches as Mashiro abruptly turns to leave. She declares coldly that if he truly loves such a cute girl, then so be it. Uboshi immediately denies any romantic involvement, insisting there's nothing between him and Aroha, and that Aroha isn't even cute. But Mashiro turns back, disappointed, and bitterly asks if they were just mocking her, vowing they'll burn in hell for it. As she walks away, she, visibly anxious, asks him what they should do next. He suggests they just go home for now and think things through. Near his apartment, they unexpectedly hear Mashiro's voice. She's holding some boxes and instructing a laborer to carefully untie her luggage from the vehicle. When she notices them, she's visibly shocked and accuses them of stalking her. He calmly denies it, explaining they live here. Aroha cheerfully adds that she's also moving into the building. Mashiro immediately questions her relationship with him. Aroha proudly introduces herself as his younger sister, then quickly clarifies that since she's the younger sister of his friend, it makes her his younger sister too. Mashiro, still baffled, finding no logic in the explanation. Aroha, now disheartened, sulks at the realization that Mashiro's bluntness matches Uboshi's own sharp tongue. Feeling outmatched and misunderstood, she sighs, while Mashiro, fed up, looks away in exasperation. Upon seeing Aroha acting overly annoying toward Mashiro, he approaches her and gently tells her to tone it down. But Aroha, with a proud smirk, declares that teasing Mashiro is just a way to annoy him. He is left speechless by the absurd logic of her strategy. He then turns to Mashiro and apologizes for Aroha's behavior, but Mashiro coldly asks if Aroha is a stranger to him. And if she is, then why is he living with a stranger? Are they married? Panicking, he quickly clarifies that he lives in apartment 502, while Aroha stays in 503. He also adds that their mutual friend Ozu lives in 501. This already surprises Mashiro, but she becomes even more stunned when he reveals that their homeroom teacher, Murasaki Shikibu-sensei, resides in 504. Shocked, Mashiro asks why they're all living so close, and Uboshi insists it's purely a coincidence. Still puzzled, she sarcastically wonders if the entire Fifth Floor Alliance decided to live together. Dismissing the idea, she suddenly bolts away, tears in her eyes, shouting that everything, including the people and even the environment, is unbearably irritating. She slams her door shut behind her. Left standing in silence, Aroha softly asks Uboshi what they should do next. But he calmly refuses to act impulsively, explaining that Mashiro is like Snow White, someone who left her castle, her comfort, and her pride behind to live alone in a strange place, hiding her true emotions. So instead of pushing her, he decides they should quietly support her, searching for ways to make her happy with gentleness, care, and heartfelt affection. The next day, Murasaki-sensei excitedly prepares a celebratory dinner for everyone after the successful completion of their latest scenario. The four of them, Uboshi, Aroha, Ozu, and Murasaki, cheerfully toast with drinks, their spirits high. She smiles contentedly, savoring how much better alcohol tastes after clearing deadlines. Aroha, eyeing her fondly, teases the teacher by asking how many bottles she's had. Murasaki, slurring slightly, waves it off with a vague laugh, claiming she has no idea. Turning the tables, she then asks Aroha how many drinks she's had in her life. Blushing, Aroha shyly admits she's not even legally allowed to drink yet. Delighted, Murasaki offers her a glass of vodka with ice, suggesting it be her first. Aroha hesitates only briefly before agreeing with a smile, raising her glass. Watching Aroha chat politely with others, Uboshi feels bewildered, Why does she reserve all her annoying behavior just for him, while getting along perfectly with everyone else? Lost in thought, he's interrupted by Ozu admiring the roast meat Ubashi prepared, calling it flawless. Ubashi modestly denies it and instead praises Ozu's incredible illustrations, how naturally they blended into the frames. Ozu humbly replies that he just thought it might help. Uboshi reflects on Ozu's talent, remembering how he even won a math Olympiad in grade school. Taking a sip of his drink, he casually remarks that someone like Ozu must have many people wanting to work with him. Ozu pauses, then looks at him emotionally, thanking Ubashi for guiding him through his darkest times and helping him find peace. He insists that Ubashi is the truly amazing one. Embarrassed, Uboshi tries to change the subject, but Ozu just smiles and teases him for blushing. Ozu shifts the topic to Makigai-sensei, and Uboshi explains that Makigai won't be helping with the current task due to his novel deadline. A winner of Yuzu Publications contest 3 years ago, Makigai became a hit author with over 3 million copies sold. Ubashi, impressed by his storytelling, had once asked him to write scenarios for a game on the verge of shutdown, and surprisingly, Makigai agreed. Though they'd never met in person, his calm, mature voice gives the impression of a mellow older man. Suddenly, Murasaki-sensei stumbles over, accusing them of bad-mouthing her. Tearfully drunk, she yells at Ubashi, who quickly denies it and tells her to step back. Aroha casually explains that she drank nearly 10 gallons. Everyone watches in shock as the flushed, dizzy Murasaki declares her head is spinning, and charges at Uboshi, saying he looks younger than her. Horrified, he tries to push her away, but she giggles, says being ignored feels great, and hugs him, calling him a wonderful little Shota. Spotting something missing in Ubashi, she turns to Ozu, admiring his silky hair and bright eyes, calling him a healing Shota prince. Before Ozu can react, she drunkenly shoves our lad into him, making the two boys accidentally hug. Murasaki grins, amused. Ubashi, the rude little Shota, is finally being pampered by the kind Shota prince, Ozuma. As the two boys awkwardly blush, Aroha beams with pride, pleased her chaotic plan led to such a funny moment. Meanwhile, an irritated Ubashi taps Murasaki's head and sternly tells her to snap out of it. Seeing his serious expression, she blinks in concern. He tells her she's been harassing students. Murasaki denies it, insisting she's still in control. Ubashi fires back sarcastically that her brain only works when it's convenient. Then, shifting to a serious tone, he tells the group he wants to invite Tsukinomori Mashiro to join them. He admits it might be difficult for both sides, and that she probably wouldn't accept easily. But lowering his gaze, he shares that her father entrusted her to him, and he sincerely asks for their help in looking after her. The group falls silent for a moment. Then Aroha teases that even though he's already doing a good job, he's still asking for help. Ozu chuckles, saying Ubashi doesn't know the difference between sympathy and kindness. Finally, with a gentle smile, Murasaki suggests that instead of forcing anything, they should simply let Mashiro choose her own place and role, on her own terms. Despite the teasing, the group stays upbeat. Taking the lead, Uboshi suggests throwing a welcome party for Mashiro to help her feel more at ease with them. Everyone agrees enthusiastically, each taking on a role to prepare. They set the date for Friday at 8 p.m., determined to make it a fun, chaotic night that shows Mashiro just how annoyingly warm they can be. 6 days ago, Uboshi rang Mashiro's doorbell early in the morning. She opened it angrily, yelling at him for showing up on a weekend, only to have him cheerfully invite her to the party. Without a word, she slammed the door shut. 5 days ago, he tried again, but she didn't answer. She'd turned off the doorbell, so he wrote the invitation on a slip of paper and quietly slid it under her door. 4 days ago in class, Uboshi passed Mashiro a note, hoping to talk. She accused him of mocking her, but he clarified he only wanted to invite her to the party. When he asked about her mailbox so he could contact her properly, she refused outright. 3 days ago, he reminded her again of the Friday party, only for her to scold him for talking during class. 2 days ago, he tried once more while walking home, but she stayed cold and told him not to speak to her. Just yesterday, he followed her to remind her again, only to accidentally enter the girls' restroom. Mashiro screamed, and he fled in embarrassment. Now Uboshi is out shopping with Aroha, who's lively and excited about the party. Her bright mood surprises him, and she jokes that she often gets free stuff when she's cheerful. While browsing, a sample booth lady mistakes them for a couple and compliments Aroha, calling her beautiful. Flustered, Uboshi denies the relationship, while Aroha blushes and politely asks for a food sample. After just one bite, she's impressed by how delicious it is. Uboshi watches her, clearly annoyed. When she holds the sample toward him and politely asks if he'd like to try it, he sharply moves away and yells at her not to do that. At that moment, the sample lady reappears, grabs Aroha's hand protectively, and scolds Uboshi for being rude to such a sweet girl. Left speechless, he quietly thinks of Ozu and wonders why he isn't here. He recalls Ozu refusing to join them, saying he wanted the couple to enjoy their time together. Now Aroha, still holding the sample, looks emotional. Her face is flush and her eyes are teary as she gently asks if he really won't try it. Though annoyed, Uboshi notices the lady glaring at him. With no other option, he opens his mouth and Aroha moves closer to feed him. Seeing this, the sample lady becomes overjoyed and excited. When she asks Uboshi how it tastes, he admits it's delicious. She smiles warmly, praising his honesty. While shopping, Aroha casually asks Uboshi if things have progressed with Mashiro. He replies with a hint of sadness, saying Mashiro is avoiding him without any sign of guilt. As she reaches for a jar of tomato concentrate on a high shelf, she asks if he's hiding his true self, like Ayan and Pushi did with Mashiro. Uboshi falls silent, then sighs and admits he hates the situation. Despite trying his best and using all his abilities, nothing seems to work because of everything holding him back. With a bright smile, Aroha tells him that his ability to attract people gives others hope. But as she says this, her foot slips. Uboshi immediately catches her from behind. Grateful, she smiles and continues, saying that even when others mess up or lose their way, someone like him can bring them back. She hands him the jar and adds that this is why her brother, Ozu, follows him. Then gently she tells him, if he truly cares about Mashiro, he just needs to trust his own eyes. Uboshi finally understands, recalling the day he revealed his dream, to have everyone work under honey play. He remembers how both Murasaki-sensei and Ozu instantly rejected it as impossible. But he had pushed them to believe. To Ozu, he reminded him that even a genius struggles without people. To Murasaki, he pointed out that her talent as an illustrator was being wasted under her family's pressure to teach. He shared his vision, to create a place where they could all shine. With President Sakino Mori's help, he aimed to get everyone hired at Honey Play, even if it meant sacrificing himself. His words had moved them deeply, and now, more than ever, he's ready to give everything for Mashiro. Back in the present, Uboshi thanks Aroha for helping him see things clearly. She beams, happy to see him finally moving forward. With quiet determination, he smiles, ready to reach Mashiro gently or boldly, even from the shadows. Meanwhile, Mashiro lies in bed, reflecting on how much Uboshi still resembles the boy he once was. Remembering how he kept inviting her again and again, she realizes his intentions were genuine. Deep down, she wants to take a step toward him, to finally move their relationship forward. Tears well up as she thinks about Aroha, someone she knows nothing about. Unlike Ozu or Murasaki, whose name she heard during Uboshi's call with her father, Aroha is a mystery. She wonders if her jealousy is to blame. After all, she used selfish tricks to join Uboshi's class, acting more like a stalker than him. Worried she won't get a chance to talk to him at the party, she fears being left out again. Tearfully, she tells herself to stop thinking like this. Hiding beneath her blanket, she quietly decides to reject his invitation, even though she's in love with him.
Here I am.